This is Ship It with Justin Garrison and Autumn Nash, a podcast about everything that happens after Git Push. Ship It is brought to you by Fly.io, the home of changelog.com. Launch your apps close to your users all around the world. Learn how at Fly.io.
Okay, friends, I'm here with a good friend of mine, Shane Harder, the founder of Chronitor. Check them out at chronitor.io. Chronitor lets you keep tabs on your cron jobs, Linux, Kubernetes, Apache, Airflow, Sidekick, and more. With over 12 open source integrations, you can instrument all your jobs no matter where you're running them. So, Shane, one of the things I love most about Chronitor, I'm a user, as you know, is how great the UI is. It's very nice looking, it's easy to use, I can easily see all my jobs, it's easy to see all the details of my jobs, the timeline, the status, success rate, executions, and any alerts that I should pay attention to. How did you get to this user interface for Chronitor?
It's something we've been working on for years to get right, and it comes down to three key experiences in the app. And the first is just the overview of all your jobs and like what they're currently doing, what their recent execution history has been, and like what their overall state is. And then you can see that also on a timeline view. You know, like Chronitor was like the first one to do this, where instead of just having to look on a graph or a list, you know, jobs run on a timeline. You just put them on a timeline. So you can scroll back in time and see what happened like yesterday. You can also scroll forward in time and see like what your upcoming scheduled jobs are. And then when you drill down into like a single job, like what you're able to see in there is all the details that you need to understand what's going on and debug any issues that might be happening. So you've got the normal performance graphs and success rate graphs, and you can drill into stack traces and the complete log output from any job execution. What makes these screens glanceable still is really disciplined use of color, where the whole app is in really sort of pleasant neutral tones, and we only let ourselves use like bold color on the areas where we really want to focus your attention. So if you see red or green on the UI, it's there intentionally and purposefully. And usually if you hit a screen, that's the first place your eye is going to go anyway. And we wanted to highlight that and make it easy to find and let you explore the rest of it and uncover the rest of it from there.
Okay, friends, join more than 50,000 developers using Chronitor. I'm one of them. You can start for free, and they have a pay-as-you-grow pricing plan. Setup is too easy with more than 20 SDKs. Check them out at chronitor.io. That's chronitor.io. Again, chronitor.io.
Hello and welcome to Ship It, the podcast all about what happens when you, after you push Git, I don't know.
Git push?
Git push? Yeah, that's the phrase we want. But also after you have a split brain database and you freeze when you're talking.
I'm just saying, if you drank coffee, you wouldn't have these problems.
I don't think coffee would solve my problem right now. I am your host, Justin Garrison, and with me as always is Autumn. How's it going, Autumn?
I mean, great, because I just had coffee and a donut. So, like, my brain is firing on all signals.
Caffeine and sugar. That is all.
My brain is so happy right now. Well, also, we just talked about databases. So, like, living my best life.
This was a phenomenal conversation.
I had so much. I am now, like, just, I love her. Like, I am a stan. Like, just amazing. Like, I feel like this episode was a gift to me. And, like, I appreciate you.
Silvia Botros is the guest for today. She goes by DB Smasher online a lot of places. And
also, that is the best friggin' social handle ever. Like, can we talk?
We didn't even get into the whole, like, she has this curse of technology that is just hilarious. She used to post it.
Can we bring her back for another one? Like, can we bring her back for another episode? Like, mostly just so I can talk to her. Like, yeah, we'll also tape the podcast, but like, we like just like, yo, like, okay, so you know, how some people when you meet them, like, it's almost like they say, don't meet like your heroes or cool people because they'll disappoint you. She does not disappoint. Like, I was like, oh, like, you're even cooler than I thought you were gonna be, and like, can we be besties? Like, she's probably like, this girl's like crazy and stop following me around, but I'm totally like, we have to be friends. Like, we have to be friends.
I kept most of this conversation with you a secret because I knew how awesome she was, and I was just like, Autumn's gonna, yeah.
Usually, I'm like, how dare you? But like, I'm so happy. Like, like I feel like this was like a gift, and like I'm so here for it.
Yeah. And anyone listening to this right now can't see that Autumn is bouncing her chair. That's your excited faces, like you just start jumping. Some of that might be the caffeine, but the rest of it is just...
it's totally her. It's totally her. Like I was just like, I want to be like you when I grow up. Teach me how to do these things. I think I have a new hero. Like, okay.
So we do go a little long in the conversation. So let's jump right into it, and we'll come back with a little quiz afterwards, just so that everyone, we don't want to delay it anymore. This is plenty of
y'all,
suspense.
he's gonna make me do another quiz.
Come back for the quiz. It'll be fun. But right now, enjoy the conversation with Silvia. Thank you so much, Silvia, for coming on the show and talking to us about MySQL. You are currently a senior architect at Twilio, and you are architecting, specifically, you focus on databases, right?
I've had a previous stint at Twilio where my focus was databases, and when I decided to go back to Twilio, it's slightly more expanded now, where it's a lot of databases, but also a lot of general SRE work.
As a senior architect, like you need to see more things, right? You can't just focus on the one area.
Yeah. I mean, career ladders, as flawed as they can be, it's still useful to have one. And so at Twilio specifically, they focus very much after like a staff level engineer, like the principal and architect and senior architect, they focus very much more on like scope and the impact you present in that scope, and not as much about tickets finished and, work done, that kind of thing. It becomes a very different kind of job. So for senior architect, like it's the top of the IC ladder. And yeah, it's like if you're going to be director level, senior director level, but IC, but not managing anybody, it needs to come with like a lot of impact and broad influence in the org.
Tell us about your career background before you were a senior architect, because that's like an amazing role. So you must have done a lot of cool things. Tell us about you. Or
we say like, we've seen some things. Could be that too. A little bit of both. I'm an immigrant. I moved to the States when I was about 21. So I sort of had to restart college kind of later than most of my peers. I did my college here in Southern California, go Titans, down in Fullerton. Just the way life worked out. As soon as I finished, I moved out to the East Coast. My husband, who's a physician, started his residency. And so my first job out of college was in a now long gone CDN called Panther Express, which is part of what was known at the time as AliCorp. And for those who are listening who are probably old enough to remember this is a long time ago. There was a company called DoubleClick that kind of pioneered ad tech, basically. Its founders sold it to Google for a lot of money at the time. It was probably like a kind of a record.
It was huge at the time.
Acquisition at the time. Yep. So those two guys, Dwight Merriman and I think Kevin Ryan, I think was his name. They started this sort of group of companies called AliCorp. It was basically an incubator before incubators was a thing in New York City. And under that umbrella, there was a number of companies. One of them was my first employer, Panther CDN, which didn't last very long. But some of our sister companies in the same office space were now well-known names like there was Silicon Alley Insider, which became Business Insider. There was 10gen, which is now MongoDB. And there was a couple of other that and Gilt Group, if anybody listening also wants to buy, I think they do like flash sales for designer stuff. Like it's very much in a completely different area.
Oh, okay.
So the interesting part was I got to spend my first year or so fresh out of college in that same office space as everybody else. We were literally like, there was really not much of a boundary between those companies just sitting next to each other. And so I got to learn a bunch of Python. I got to learn a bunch of Django. college was all C++, and nobody at that point was doing C++ really voluntarily. Yeah. So it was like, you got to learn some new languages. And there was some MySQL. The way I ended up in databases is about the 6-month mark after I started. The database, Panther Express, was small, so it was one database. And the database that ran the billing stuff had some script that runs overnight to aggregate usage data. And that script started to take longer than 24 hours to finish. Is not ideal if it's a nightly script.
Yeah. Those cron jobs overlap.
Yep. Long story short, nobody wanted to touch the database. I got curious and started looking up what is MySQL, started looking up, reading the documentation. I grabbed a book called High Performance MySQL 2nd edition and started reading on it. And I realized that when they set up the company, they set up that database and just installed MySQL, started the process, and walked away.
This is done. All right, next problem.
That sounds like a common story in a lot of companies and applications. I'm always like,
I'm still in some MySQL DBA circles. I don't think a single one of them chose that path. I think every single one of us, including my co-author, we just tripped on a database early in our career, and the rest is history. No, I don't think anybody chooses this life. It chooses you.
The sorting hat has spoken.
That just happens to you. But yeah, I was super excited at the time. I was like, we need to go change this config and that config, and we can do that. I fixed the issue with the cron job at the time, but of course I didn't know at the time, but you fix one problem, that just gets you to the next problem.
You touched it last. You are responsible.
Exactly what Justin just said. That is also the other lesson I did not know at the time. You touched it last. It's yours now.
I feel like you should make that shirt that says "Now about this database life" or something about database life, and you should just sell it with your book.
The database life chooses you.
Yes.
Actually, that sounds really cool. Actually, I should get that done.
I'd buy it. I'm just saying.
So about the 1-year mark was the market crash of 2009, and Panther Express did not survive it. We ended up getting bought by a competitor whose headquarters in Korea, completely different stack. They sort of bought it for the customer base and still needed to figure out now how to keep running this thing, but then slowly sort of absorb all of that kind of M&A fun stuff. But then at that point, it became clear that the data store stuff is important because that's a big part of the value we just paid money for. And she's the one who knows how to run it. So I stayed with them for another 3 years after that, and then moved back to California. And because of a layoff over in CD Networks and all sorts of conversations here in Southern California, I happened to just also, again, I was in SoCal interviewing with someone else entirely, another company entirely, but that didn't go well. So I sort of took an interview with this very small company in Anaheim called SendGrid. I got to learn through that interview that apparently sending email is a business. That was news to me. They were looking for their first in-house DBA. So that was my first time going, yes, this is now my job. It's not just the second thing I do.
Yeah.
I got to interview with one of the co-founders. In my Dunning-Kruger hubris of being a junior at the time, told him to his face he's using MySQL wrong. Bless that man. He had the humility to be like, I think you're right. I'm going to hire you. I started at SendGrid in 2012, and since then it became a rocket ship. I ended up staying with SendGrid all the way through to the IPO, and then a year later, Twilio acquired them. And by then, I was an architect / senior principal. I had helped build an entire DBRE team inside SendGrid and started helping with other things in Twilio. And yeah, here we are.
DBRE is not a term I hear enough. Right?
Yeah,
that's
I know.
So crucial. Database reliability engineer. That is that's really important.
I feel like we dropped the ball on properly popularizing Charity and Lane Campbell's book.
I'd watch
they wrote the DB. I know, right? They wrote that book. Even that book was done before I even started talking with Riley about mine. And I remember loving that book, and I still till now will refer to it sometimes. I tried to borrow a lot of the concepts in our edition of High Performance MySQL, but really, it was around about few years into my time with SendGrid was when I realized that this job can no longer be a hero thing. I did it as because it feels nice when you're in the thing, like they call you into the incident and you figure out what's wrong with the database. And now like, but I'm like, that's not, burnout was starting to settle in. At that point, I was like about 10 years into my career. And I was like, this is not really healthy. This needs to stop being like sort of a magical job.
Even just the general like words matter, right? And like we still call a lot of people that manage databases administrators as like you do the maintenance tasks. Like you're not doing engineering work, you're an admin, right? And like SRE like became this like, oh, you can be cool in ops again. Right, you could do cool stuff and be an operator, and like database engineering feels different than database administration.
I feel like they use these titles to pay people less, like half the time. Like they'll be like, well, you're a data like
That's words
engineer,
matter.
but then you're doing data
Oh,
engineering.
I
And,
have
like,
a
they're
whole
like
rant.
so yeah, like why do they do that? And then they'll be like, you're a B business intelligence engineer or a data scientist. And I'm like, that they both have master's degrees and you're paying 160% less. Like, you know, like,
don't even like, I don't know if we have enough time in this podcast about Radford. And I know that your listeners probably don't want to hear me rant about HR practices in
but
Radford.
I do, though.
That's not what we're here for.
Like,
I absolutely. So here's the thing I did. So I was lucky in my time at Senga because I was there for so long that I had a long trail of like leaders, some of whom were really good at sort of helping me recognize where my actual strengths are and sort of realizing, oh, it's not like about you going into databases. Like you need to start, building a team, be a leader, even if you don't want to be a manager. And so something I did about that, because when I finally got to the point of understanding how that worked and sort of advocating for my promotions, I decided I don't want the team I hired to go through the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so when it came time to sort of phase out our consultants who were my backbone for 4 or 5 years, and sort of we're hiring an internal team, here's some headcount, and here's a partner people manager who's going to help you, like you and him are going to figure out what this team looks like. And he and I, very early on, I was like, we're not hiring DBAs. I don't even want DBA on the job title. We didn't call them DBREs because it was before the whole SRE thing. It was still like with the height of DevOps days. And so I decided to be like, we're going to call them database engineers, because I was like, this is the team that's not going to be administrators. I'm going to want, we had like a headcount of 4. And I was like, I want maybe 1 or 2 of them to have some solid past experience. And the other 2, I want them brand new. Like they're just software engineers, but they decided to switch gears.
Can we talk about how much I love you that you were like, give me new people so I can teach a skill? Like that's the only way you can like get more people to have these skills. Like I love that.
And it was so fulfilling. It's one of my, like, if someone asks me about like my career progression so far and things that I'm proud of, this is probably the thing I'm most proud of, is that we got the opportunity to have headcount and sort of, org structure. It's not just go hire the best people only and then have them fight over the cool work and nobody wants to do the other stuff. Because also at the same time, like my engineering leadership at the time was also making this culture shift in SendGrid where we were moving away from ops is on call for everything and more like, your product teams, you're on call for your services. And it was very clear at that point from talking to my VPE that, the database is part of the service, like obviously. And I was already long on the path of helping SendGrid sort of shard its databases by function. So like that was already like sort of going in the same line with that. So it was like, but those engineers don't know how to do anything with databases. If you page them about a database, all they're going to do is escalate to you, me specifically at that point as well. And so it was a recognition that we needed a team that didn't just fix databases for people, but wanted to sort of build tools to help people own their own databases. The couple who had previous experience, teach. You get called in, you tell them what they should look at and they go to incident reviews and explain you had a deadlock because you were doing this and this is how your table looks. And so like try to use as many opportunities as possible to sort of teach those engineers. And, it was not an easy road. We definitely had struggles with a bunch of folks at that point who were like, I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to learn about databases. But this is a thing that a company has to sort of do when it goes out of startup mode. And now you're big enough. Like you can't have like 2 or 3 people. First of all, like how many DBAs are you going to hire? And then second of all, like you can't have them be sort of like that one, that XKCD comic with the one stone in the corner that's holding up the whole thing. That you can't do that. That's a business risk, even in cold-hearted pragmatic terms, not even human terms. It's a business risk. What if a bus hits that person? What if they win the lottery and walk away?
Can we just talk about like I love you. Like, okay, there's so many things I like am so excited about. Like, first of all, I love databases because everybody's always like, oh, I don't want to touch database. That's not cool. But where's all like what is in one of the most important parts of every business? The data.
Can't live
right?
without them.
Yes. And okay. And then like the fact that you wanted to take new people and teach them, this is what is going to I call this the new like mess around and find out for like era of tech, right? This is going to bite us all in the butt with like all the like AI and how we don't want to teach junior people and we only want to hire senior people. There are certain skills that you're just not going to get out of thin air. And if we don't learn how to teach people skills, we're going to like ruin like the when you teach people how to do things, you get paid less. You get like woke like you know what I mean? Like you get
Ooh, I got
someone
some
else
bad
to-
news for you. So that has been going that way long before the whole AI thing started.
I think it's going to get worse because they're not they like
Yes.
look at how they're not hiring any more junior positions for engineering. Like majority of what they're hiring for is mid and senior level right now, and it's been for like the
Well,
last year.
that's in part a whole like, you know, zero interest rates versus non-zero interest rate. That's a big part of it. But then also, yeah, this has been a simmering sort of rant with some of my tech circle friends for a while, long before even AI. I think things like AI and ChatGPT and Copilot probably will make it worse.
Yeah.
But we had this whole time of like engineers coming out of college and think their entire job is to glue a bunch of APIs from other vendors together.
Yes.
And then you have this whole, I think there's even I'm pretty sure there's a post about this in my blog from like 4 years ago. I'm going to have to find that and send it to Justin maybe.
Yeah, we can put in the notes.
Yeah, because I was starting to realize that I was encountering more and more new engineers who have already gotten to like, not necessarily like not junior or like brand new, but like a few years into their career. And they basically think the entire job is glue together some APIs and some managed services in AWS.
I think it's also because like we don't teach anymore. Like you're supposed to just come in and just know what you're doing and like there's no like and I think it makes senior engineers better engineers when they have to teach people, right? You know what I mean? And then like the junior engineers become better engineers because they're getting like led the right direction. You know what I mean?
We don't incentivize curiosity. I think one of the hardest challenges if you have an engineering org that's going to grow a lot, and a lot of those grew a lot in the last few years and now shrinking back, it's like you didn't incentivize curiosity. And so I get it. I get folks who are like, well, I'm using a managed database. Why do I have to care about that? I'm like, guess what? You'll still get deadlocks in the managed database.
Not just that, but the way that you put data in and take it out and like plan your schema, like you're gonna pay so much more. That like that like we had somebody one day that was like, "Oh well, NoSQL is schemaless," and I'm like, "Oh no, it's not." Like, like what are you?
So yeah, that was such an interesting fork in my road very early on, where I was like sitting right there, and like Panther Express had this database that was basically a very wide JSON thing in a MySQL table that did not scale. And then the founder of that company decided that he hates SQL, so he went and founded MongoDB.
Oh my god, y'all can't see her, but her face right now, the best.
So I remember struggling with this, and I was at the time I was like, maybe I'm just too young to understand. Like I'm still early in my career.
Oh no, you were right. You're right. Like.
But I remember distinctly having conversations with the senior engineer who made the move from Panther to be senior engineers over in Mongo and became core contributors to Mongo, and back and forth about the importance of transactions.
Oh my goodness!
Because Mongo for quite a long time was like no transactions. You don't need those.
Yeah.
And I remember going, man, this is why I'm getting paged by that other database right here in Panther for 4 years.
Yeah. I think they get so wrapped up into NoSQL and SQL and like each database that they don't realize that they're tools that, you know, that they all take tuning. You need to be careful like what your use case is. They're all a tool that's right for a certain use case. And they're just like, this will do things and it'll be magical. And I'm like, no, that's not how any of this works.
Exactly. People think I'm joking when I say all databases are terrible, but truly, they all have a terrible side to them.
For the wrong thing, 100%, or the wrong like access, like mod, like it just, I don't understand. Like I'm just like, and not just that, but once you get to a certain scale, like you may have to re-architect because now your use case is a different use case, right? Like so.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny because like I think a lot of folks mistakenly, and like this is a dynamic that's still ongoing right now in my day job, where people I think I'm not sure. I never truly probe into that because it's not helpful, but it's like I think in some cases they think because my name is on that book that I want everything to run in MySQL.
Oh my God, I hate that.
And like I'm like, no. In fact, I think you're using it too much.
Yeah, that's like my background's in NoSQL, and like I started with like Cassandra and like Dynamo and like Document
Ooh,
DB, like all
Cassandra.
that kind of deal. But like as like a solutions architect, and people like I'm just like you have to use the right database. Like if it's not right for like for a NoSQL database, I'm gonna tell you to go get RDS or like SQL or MySQL or like.
See, as a solutions architect, that's not really like, generally speaking, it's not a job that's incentivized to say something like that.
But like you should.
Exactly. When I encounter vendors who say something like that, I'm like, ooh, now you've gained my respect. Let me listen to what you're saying.
Because like it's that trust though, right? Like you're like I'm not gonna trust you if you like when you go and you're in a conversation with someone and they're like use this tool for everything. I'm like 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 you're just like that. There's nothing in tech that like you're just like you. It's like I hate when people are like let's take this hammer and hit everything with it, and I'm like that's not gonna aim well.
No,
Why
Justin,
do you do
no.
this to me?
No.
Like you're giving me PTSD. Like
No.
What's up, friends? I'm here with a new friend of mine, the creator of Bitwarden, Kyle Spearin. Bitwarden is well known as the open source password manager out there to secure your digital life. And now they have a secrets manager to keep devs safe, to keep secrets safe, secure keys, tokens, and machine credentials with easy scalable access for humans and machines. So Kyle, why is now the best time for you to launch a secrets manager at Bitwarden?
We've been doing password management for a long time. And if you sit back and ask yourself, well, what's the difference between a password and a secret? A password is a secret, right? A lot of it comes down to kind of the integration point of what we offer. Secrets Manager is kind of another platform of doing the same thing that you do in password management. There's a lot of similarities, and that's why it made sense for us to move from just doing password management into secrets management as well. We also have a very strong user base that is very centric to kind of our open source message and our developers themselves. So it very much aligns with who our core user base is that we tailor to. So Secrets Management was a natural evolution for us to go into. Password management hygiene of users is really bad, and that's the problem we're solving with Password Manager. I don't know about you, but if I look back at my career and how I evolve, and especially developing new projects and other things, secrets management is also pretty bad hygiene, or especially in the earlier days for a lot of people. And you can kind of get into the rut of doing bad things, and you can permeate a lot of those kind of bad practices in a lot of ways to other aspects of your business that's important to stay ahead of. We think that it matters a whole lot to developers to use a familiar platform that they know and love and can trust to kind of solve their other problems that, clean up the hygiene of what they do on the internet and how they build applications and how they manage secrets across their applications.
Okay, get streamlined secrets management for developers at bitwarden.com/secrets. Get end-to-end encrypted Bitwarden Secrets Manager, clean up your hygiene for your secrets, secure your infrastructure, your machine secrets, and your developer secrets. Start a free 7-day Bitwarden Secrets Manager trial today at bitwarden.com/secrets. That's bitwarden.com/secrets.
I love your like kind of career progression of like you got nerd sniped by a database problem.
But can we just talk about how badass you are? Like there's like
Thank you.
Well, like no, like and then she like goes and picks up this book, and then you write
the next version of it.
Two editions later, you're the author. High Performance MySQL.
Like, can we talk about it? You're like, I had no idea what this was, and I picked up a book, and now I'm the next generation writer of
author,
it.
right?
Like,
Yeah, that was a whole other story.
But like, okay, so it's so hard to find like like women like in like data and stuff, and like you're a principal architect. Like that is so badass. Like just. I want to be you when I grow up, and I'm gonna follow you around. Like we're gonna be besties after this. Like teach me your ways.
Yeah, the book thing was wild.
How did you get called or asked to do this book? Like, tell us about it.
So, my High Performance MySQL, if you're in any of the MySQL circles or been to Percona Live when it used to run in person, like it's a well-known book. And second and third edition were primarily written by a gentleman called Baron Schwartz. He wrote himself some of the most classic tools in the MySQL space. He wrote them in Perl. Like that was the thing back then. Like it's like pre-bash. Like that's how long.
Perl is OG.
We're taking it back old school.
Yeah.
If you're doing database engineering, you got some Perl tools in there.
Baron helped. Was he co-founder or like? I think he was co-founder. Percona, the group that does. They do a lot of like they're more than MySQL now. They do actually a lot of Mongo work too and Kubernetes work. So he co-founded with them, and then after he left that company, he has decided at that point that things are starting to evolve where there is not a good option in the market for database monitoring. So he founded a company called Vivid Cortex, which basically helps you. Like it was the first, I think one of the first to do like deep relational database monitoring where you fingerprint the queries, you start sending stats about individual queries, and you sort of try to go and see, oh, like this particular query is taking that much cycles, taking that much time over a month or something.
What's fingerprinting a query? That sounds really interesting.
So what it does, it's basically an agent that runs on your database, and it listens on the same port as the database. And because of privacy, you don't want to just take all the same queries and just pipe them as is into your metrics or your data store analysis, because like there's going to be a lot of sensitive information in there. But what it does is it looks at patterns in those queries where like you keep having the same select just with a different username, but it happens this often. And each time it takes this many milliseconds, but it happens so often that it's actually taking up like so many hours in a given day if you were to stack them up together.
Oh, I love metrics and observability like that finds patterns. Like now, I just blame you for the rabbit hole that I'm going to go down all weekend.
Autumn's weekend is planned.
So jumping ahead a little bit, like Vivid Cortex has been acquired by SolarWinds a long time ago. And so they're part of this, they're basically the database performance monitoring portion of SolarWinds product suite. But when it started, it was around the same time when I had been at that point a few years at SendGrid, and SendGrid was trying to sort of popularize its blog. This was the age where like all the companies wanted to have a technical blog, kind of like the Netflix blog, and you would have like, write it up specifically about how you do the technical things. And so I wrote a blog post at that point about how we were moving towards sharding and why we don't want everything in one big database. And then, the trade-offs of that. I get a cold email from Baron Schwartz going, "Hey, Sylvia, I saw your blog post. I'm starting this new company after I left Percona. Can you get on a call? I would like to see if you can be like an early adopter of Vivid Cortex." And I distinctly remember pinging my best friend at work and going, "Oh my God, Baron Schwartz just emailed me." Like,
can we post your blog in the show notes? Because I want to read it. I mean,
Yeah.
mostly for me. Like, I guess we can share it with other people, but
I haven't written anything in a few years. It's been a couple of years.
yeah, but I'm sure it's still like accurate though. That's awesome. Like, that's crazy. Like one of the like you read that book when you were looking for like a problem, like to solve a problem, and then like he's in your like email. Like that's wild.
Yeah, so I got on a call with him. He showed me a demo. I got super excited because that was around the same time, serendipitously, like this was around the same time when we were starting at SendGrid to go, we need others to be on call for the databases. It can't be just the one person. And so I showed it to my leadership. We ended up taking on the contract. We were one of the first white papers on Vivid Cortex website. And it was a very good way for me to sort of show engineers how to figure out their performance problems. Because up to that point, if you felt like if you were perceiving a slowness from the application side, your only recourse is ping me. I have to go collect slow logs directly on the database, run them through PT Query Digest, which Baron also wrote, and then pull out this like text-based report and start telling them what's going on. And it's such a long cycle and very reactive. And at that point, you probably have incidents, or you should have an incident in your hands. Turning it around where it's like already a tool that's just running, and you just go and you see, okay, like this query used to be like this little and now it's like that big. The number of rows expand. Did a customer decide to hit us a little too hard? Like those kinds of conversations. And so through that partnership with Vivid Cortex, and even after he sold it and he's now in retirement basically, we stayed in touch. And so when O'Reilly came to him a few years later and we're like, hey, like High Performance MySQL 3rd edition is like hitting 6-ish years now, or 8 years almost. And, there's been other like major releases of MySQL since then. And like, things like AWS Aurora had been around for like 5-6 years and it's becoming very solid, not like brand new and sketch. And so they were like, are you interested in helping in working with a 4th edition? He was like, absolutely not. I don't even do any of that stuff anymore. And so he actually directed their development editor to me. And I ended up, agreeing to do it.
That's kind of dope that he gave you that credit and that he wasn't one of those dudes who was like, let's make more money even though I haven't touched that database. And because, sometimes people will do that. So it's really dope that he gave you that opportunity.
I mean, he also, like, at that point, he had done 2 editions. He knew how the royalties works. I don't think it was like yeah. From that part. But then also, to be honest, Baron is a great person, like, just on a human level. And he's always been very much into this field, looks a very specific way. Like, people in jokes in our field will say something about like, how like the administrator with he's like this dude at the corner with the neck beard and all that. And it's like DBAs are even worse. Like we're even far more homogenized. Yeah, like it's a thing.
You have the robe and the staff and the pointed hat, and you're just like, nope, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
In writing that book, what's something that you learned as you're, because like writing a book, you just have to think so slowly about how you're saying things. And I found it very interesting of just like, there's things that emerge that you didn't really expect. Was there something in writing the book that you're like, oh, this stuck with me?
So part of why Baron had O'Reilly go to me was, one, he was ready to pass the torch. And then the other thing is he already knew at that point through conversations he and I have had when we would meet at conferences and whatnot, that my view on the job has really, really changed. When I first met Baron, I was still very much like, I'm the database sorceress of the company. And I had all the keys. Not a single schema change was happening without me. And like it was very much that kind of state. And it through starting with getting Vivid Cortex plus all of the other changes that we were doing, I was moving very much towards, no, this job needs to be demystified. It needs to be reliability focused. It needs to be ROI focused. We can't be like, I'm going to benchmark this database and I'm going to squeeze every little bit of performance out of it. That's not going to be how it continues to work. And so he knew that if I took that on, I would not just want to do it. When I talked to him about it, I was like, I'm going to change a lot in the book. Like at that point, I had not even read the 3rd edition. I was like, the job has changed and this book has to change with it. And he was like, yes, I know, do it. And so, first of all, I signed up initially to be a single 4th edition author, but I signed that contract January 2020. And then, 3 months later, a major event happened.
2020 was a ride.
Yeah. So around May or June was when my production editor was like, I think you need a co-author. And I was like, I think so too. I needed a co-author who agreed philosophically on certain things with me. And so I already had known Jeremy for quite a while, and we were both about the same thing. Like we had been doing databases for so long, and we were ready for databases to stop being so special. And so we hauled the inside of that book a lot. We removed entire chapters about benchmarking.
Wow.
Yeah. We added chapters about DB. Like I added one chapter specifically that I felt strongly about DBRE principles. We obviously, for obvious reasons, needed to expand on the cloud offering and the compliance things because there was none of that in the past.
Compliance is so important.
Yeah, cloud databases too. Like when I pulled out the 3rd edition and looked at what Baron wrote about Aurora MySQL at that point, it was maybe a page in a 500-page book. And I was like, dude, you did not really want to look into this at all. And he was like, yeah, I was not interested.
Well, not just that, but Aurora has become huge with so many like companies using it and how performant it is.
Yeah, the difference of years was huge. Like I remember when Aurora first came out and it was like, man, like half of the features that didn't work, there was a lot of like downtime involved because brand new, completely proprietary storage layer.
Yeah.
But by the time me and Jeremy got involved, it was a completely different beast. So,
and its performance is crazy.
Yeah. One of my vivid memories of that journey of writing the book is how much the seasoned DBAs who were technical reviewers for the book really took a hard time. Not all of them, some of them. A few of them had a really hard time with my direction with the book about this job is not about pinching benchmarks anymore.
Because you got a bunch of DBAs that made that their career for so long, and you're telling them in this book, we're not doing that anymore.
And I was saying that even for large companies.
Yeah.
I think a lot of DBAs also are not fans of making certain things more
accessible.
Yes, that was what I was going for, but I was
Job
trying to be
security
nice
is a
about
thing,
it.
yeah.
Also, they're very against like managed databases because I think it gives them a view that they are no longer needed, but you still need someone who knows your database. And like,
I mean, in technology, we attach ourselves to a thing that we do. Like our identity is really tied to this thing that I do. And in a specialized field like databases, or at least traditionally specialized, right? Like Sylvia, you're saying like this shouldn't be as specialized as everyone has treated it in the past. But being a special identity is really important for a lot of people.
but I think like we've talked on this on the podcast about how far infrastructure's come in the last couple of years, but databases have in a way been kind of wild too, because if you think about it, like DBAs were like, walking around with pagers and like very specialized, and then we had all these managed databases come out and it changed the way that people were using databases, and it was like, you don't need DBAs, you don't need all these database people, just get a managed database. And we're like,
that is the biggest lie ever sold.
Yeah, well, not just that, and then these companies did these long migrations, and they migrated to these databases, and they still like they're putting in data and access patterns, doing all this stuff like completely wrong.
Turns out you still need the pagers, just different things.
Exactly. So it's like just like infrastructure's kind of been on a ride, so has databases, but I think it's not talked about as much, like databases in the cloud, and then how we're like getting like massive amounts of like data, and the transition between DBAs and now cloud and managed databases. Like, you rewrote that book, rightfully so, because it's like completely different world, but like there's still like a lot of the like a lot of the foundational pieces, you still need those, but you have to think of it in a completely different context.
Exactly. I mean, the way I talk about it with our engineers at Twilio now, it's like it's not about what you're using; it's about outcomes.
Yes.
And when you are a company, Twilio like has in some parts of our product, we have a variety of products in Twilio, but like things like email, we're talking planet scale. Like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we send trillions of emails over just a couple of days. You want the stuff that doesn't make you money boring. And if that means you let go of the thing that got you here so you can do something else, so like you make it boring so that the real stuff that's important continues going, do that. So it's not about which database you're using. It's like, what are you trying to accomplish? People get surprised when I go, that's an S3 file. Why is that a database?
Yeah.
So that happens.
Why are you spending the extra money for no reason?
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we talk about COGS, and yes, that's a more important thing now with our economic landscape. But like your time as an engineer is still the most expensive thing. Why are you spending time trying to tune this database when it could be an S3 file? This data doesn't change except once every day.
Yeah. You talked about like your career progression when you like really enjoyed like the hero aspect, and then you start to kind of get burned out, and then you like got to the point where you wanted to teach people. Like, can you tell us about like how you continued to progress in your career but also kind of healed that burnout, and like how you kind of transitioned to like the teaching aspect? Like, how can other people be better at teaching also?
I don't know if you ever do really like fix the burnout. At that time, credit where due, like I had really helpful Eng leadership at that point. I remember our VP of Ops at the time, at one point, and that seared in my brain. We were talking about the details of managing the database and spreading the like all of those, like the gnarly mechanics of how to do this. And I was still operating at that point with the assumption that there's no headcount for me. And he's just like, he looked at me and he goes, no, Sylvia, you're a leader. We're going to do a headcount. You're going to get, the contractors are not serving your purposes anymore. I want you to lead this area of the business. And it was like, oh, this is about the business, not about the databases. And I've taken that with me since then. Now, as far as like burnout, there's different ways burnout happens, and some of them are under our control and some of them are not. I highly recommend, there's a book on burnout, and its title is completely escaping me right now, but it's really, really good. And that helped me sort of change my view on certain things. I've learned over especially the last few years, to recognize early things under my control and things that are not. And that has been really helpful, because if you try to push the rock up the hill, it's just not going to happen.
How did you build a team without being a people manager? Was it more like you were sourcing the team and then like getting the right people and then planning it? Because I think that's like an IC dream when you like don't want to do people management, but you want to learn.
I
Like, you know
know,
what I mean?
right?
Like that's living the dream. Like,
I really lucked out with that one. So they actually first offered me that. And that was before we had a full IC ladder. And I remember at the time, this was around the same time Camille Fournier published her Rent the Runway ladder. And I thought about it for a bit. And I remember having actually a long conversation with Charity Majors. And she was like, "You don't sound like you would enjoy people management at all. You're still very much into fixing the technical problems." So I actually went to my leadership at that point and said, "I want to lead this team, but I don't want to manage this team." And I don't know what kind of, light came down on them from above, and they decided, "We'll do that."
what does that look like? Leading but not managing.
So first they hired the manager.
Okay.
So I had a wonderful partner in that manager. He's a great guy, John Martin. I don't know if Justin knows him. In any case, they hired him, and then he and I, at that point, they had him as my manager. I was still like senior staff, I think, at that point. But I had been clear at that point. Like I brought them that Rent the Runway career letter, and I told them that's where we should have this, and I want to go in that IC path. I want us to start having a principal role and architect role and grow that. I'm sure there was conversations without me as well. Like it wasn't just me bringing it in. I don't want to make it sound like I fixed the org or anything. And so they hired that manager, and he and I started together, sort of planning what we want the team to look like. So it was a long journey. So what we ended up doing is he was technically the hiring manager. He did the initial screening, but I worked with him on writing the job requirement, on writing the interview loop, on figuring out who else would be in the interview loop. Obviously, I was as well. So I was involved in all the hiring decisions. That was a big part of the success there. And then as the team got completely fleshed out, it was like, okay, we're going to have this kind of work for these folks. And then, we'll have those paired this way so that this person who is brand new to databases gets to learn. I was lucky to kind of catch a couple of really promising engineers. One of them is now and moved on to be like a senior DBA in other places, and sort of took the same mindset with him. Two of them are still here actually at Twilio, really good team members. It's been really like great watching all of that happen.
It seems like support has really like been like pivotal in your career to kind of support you to get to this next level because you're amazing and someone obviously saw how amazing you were. What else do you think really helped your career progression, like to stay like, because I think that's like hard, like when you first get into tech you're like so excited, right? And you're like, oh, all these cool like new things, like we always talk about how to get into tech, but like how did you grow your career? Like how did you go from junior to mid to like where you are? Like what do you think was like a pivotal or important to that?
I think it's really, really important to have curiosity and have mentorship. I consider, like in my conversations in my current job, when we talk about role expectations in like a calibration kind of framework or anything like that, I expect like folks who already have titles like me or very close to me, I expect that they're showing signals of how they teach people around them. I'm very much not of a, you got to that role and you continue in that role just being the hero of things.
You can't keep your head down, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to look up and you have to tell other people how to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to see signals that you're actually raising other boats. And then, honestly, for specifically like someone who looks like me, like minorities in tech, I think it's really important to have a network outside of your employer, because if you only rely on your company, you're probably going to have like single digits, if any. That's just the sad reality. There's only one other woman who's at my level, I think, right now at Twilio. When I first became architect with SendGrid, I became architect with SendGrid right before the acquisition. I was the only one. The rest were dudes. Now they were great dudes and they were very helpful, but it's still a reality at that point. I still started to have conversations with other women who got to senior levels outside, because you have to have that. So build a network. It's harder now. I mean, honestly, look, one of my biggest parts of grief about Twitter is tech Twitter.
That is so true. Like, I feel like I learned so much on Twitter and met so many great people, and that's what makes me sad. Like, everyone's like, well, we just, like, don't want to, like, hype Elon up, but, like...
Yeah, the first time I got to talk to Jeremy, my co-author, was through Twitter.
I've met so many wonderful people that way.
Yeah. So that was unfortunate. I've obviously had already built a network, so I just kept that network afterwards through other means. I would say now that we're a few years removed, like a year-ish removed from this whole thing, I would say probably Mastodon is where I'm seeing tech Twitter come up the most.
But it's so sad because now women that are interested in data won't see you on Twitter. You know what I mean? And because we haven't got back to one centralized place, it's representation matters, and the fact that we don't have a place to see other people succeeding in that. I mean, I guess you can go on LinkedIn and stuff, but whatever was captured in tech exactly. You know what I mean? I feel like Mastodon and Blue Sky have gotten so boring, not because they're not good social medias, but just because we're not all in one place.
It's a difficult one.
Yeah, it's I don't know how we get the magic back.
No, yeah, and I don't know if that's ever gonna get solved.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing outside of social media, there are things Lead Dev. They're a group that have multiple conferences that still run in person, things like Staff Plus and Managing Dev. And so they actually are very good at making sure their speaker lineups in their events are as diverse as possible. I gave them the keynote for the first Staff Plus in New York a few years ago. The curator of the event is a friend who's a woman, senior engineering career, Tanya Riley. Who, by the way, if y'all are looking to follow the IC leadership path, read her book, Staff Engineer Path.
Oh, yeah.
That is one of the few books that I had to stop reading in audio form because I usually listen to audiobooks. There was so much information. I'm like, I have to stop and write notes because this is amazing. And I had to just I was like, no, I'm not doing the audiobook. I'm going to buy this book. I'm going to write it down and I'm going to read through it slowly. Yeah.
For anybody who's looking to go into this path, the two books that are sort of hand in hand and both written by women, which I love, the Staff Engineer's Path and the Manager's Path, because you're not going to be a manager, but you're going to, as you get further, from architect and above, you're going to talk with managers all the time. In fact, those are going to be your first team.
And the Manager's Path helps you understand their incentives and why they're, that helped. Reading that book helped me understand how I should help my manager be successful in a lot of ways. And it's just oh, we're both here working.
I did not understand how VPs think about things, how to get VPs to care about certain things, and why are they in so many meetings? Junior engineers will always say stuff like this, they're just in meetings all the time. I'm like, it's not just meetings. There's an overhead to communication when the company grows. So that book was so helpful. Shout out to Camille Fournier. So helpful in understanding that mindset. Oh, this is the stuff they care about. Because if you don't understand their incentives, you can't work with them. It's that simple.
Silvia, I have one last question for you. And it's one that we've actually gotten from the community in some regards and just people in general, but people trying to pick a database and saying as an expert in this field, what's a telltale sign that someone should not be using MySQL?
If you have gotten to a size where a minute or so of I can't write to the database causes your leadership to freak out and call you in and how did that go down? You should understand at that point, the business is telling you you are supposed to optimize for availability and figure out a path to eventual consistency in how you solve the problems. Start talking to your product folks about SLOs. Start talking about, do we really need everything to be quote unquote real time? That's my biggest pet peeve when someone says it's real time. What does that even mean? Yeah, what is real time? But when people come to you with conversations like that, and this feature is sitting on top of a database that is relational, which by design means it optimizes for consistency, not availability, even in the managed solutions, this is your sign. You need to start talking about either you need to move the business, which is a harder sell, or you need to start introducing layers of reliability between this database and how you deliver the feature to the customers. Introduce queues, introduce caches. When the writer is failing over, you need to have to figure out what degraded mode looks like. It needs to become far more nuanced. It's not going to be binary from then on. That ship sailed. But yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest signals. You start freaking out over, if you start saying, I want Aurora, but I want it to fail over without any downtime, I'm going to be well, meet the CAP theorem.
Yeah, I was going to say that's when the CAP theorem comes in. Do you want availability or do you consistency?
It's just reality. So it's just these are your tools. Figure out how to make them work for you.
I wish people looked at NoSQL databases and SQL databases in that realm and not in such black and white.
Yeah, none of it is really black and white.
Nothing ever is.
Nope. You think it's real time, you think it's consistent. Well, guess what? Go look at some Jepson reports, even on MySQL itself.
I feel like when you talk to somebody who is really thinking of it in terms of the CAP theorem, it's very gray. And then when someone starts saying black and white, I'm like, this is marketing. Like this is not,
Very
we're no
true.
longer talking technically.
Silvia, thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel like we could talk to you for another hour about this.
Oh,
Because
thank
there's
you.
So much
This is
Oh, I
fun.
need to know like where to find you because like I'm gonna follow you around for the rest of my tech career. Like teach me all the things.
My online handle, which was kind of a joke at first, and I just stuck with it for over 10 years now, is DB Smasher.
Oh my God, I love you so much.
I know.
Where have you been all my life?
So yeah, the sad reality, I don't post online about tech as much anymore. Although when I do, it's most likely going to be on Mastodon, and then we'll have the blog.
Like if I have to go back to Mastodon for you, I'll do it. Like,
Oh, I know. Mastodon is a mixed bag. I'm very aware.
I was not ready.
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't open it very often. But I've noticed, like, when I say something about tech, it seems to sort of get much more of a reaction there than like threads. So I guess that's where we are. I'm still there too, but my focus right now in my social media posting is like trolling my friends, really. So
I'm here for that too, though. Like, I'll take the tech and that. Like, I'm totally here for it.
And yeah, I guess I have a blog. I have not updated in a bit, but some of it are still opinions I strongly hold. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll put those in the show notes.
Sure. Thank you.
What's up, friends? This episode is brought to you by porkbun.com. They offer domain extensions tech professionals need like .app, .dev, and .foo. If you need to showcase your next project, there is a .app for that. If you're building the latest SaaS product that will change the world, you can grab a .dev and show it off to the world. And you can show off your Kung.foo programming powers if you're doing other cool stuff. You can also use the .app, .foo, or .dev domain to showcase your digital portfolio and show off your work. They all come with heightened security that benefits you and your visitors. They're designed to be secure. .app and .dev domains are HSTS preloaded, and that means all .app and .dev websites will only load over an encrypted SSL connection. This is, of course, the gold standard of website security. They all require an encrypted connection to load. Fortunately, a free Let's Encrypt SSL certificate is included with every Porkbun domain name registration, and you get the best pricing too, only $1 for the first year for .app, .dev, or .foo domain names. Whois privacy, SSL certificates, web and email hosting trials, they're all free. Why pay for things that should be free? And they have a simple management user interface. Manage everything about your new domain name from one place. No hunting around for that feature you need. And they're backed by 5-star support 365 days a year. They have more authentic 5-star reviews from real, actual customers than any other registrar. So next time you need a domain name, get a .app, a .dev, or a .foo domain name at Porkbun for only $1 for the first year. Go to porkbun.com/shipit24. Again, porkbun.com/shipit24.
Thank you, Silvia, again for coming on the show. I have a feeling we'll have you back at some point because this was too good to. We have so many other questions. But for right now, for the outro for today, I made a quiz. More or less,
guys, he's good. I'm scared.
I had ChatGPT create a quiz.
Oh no, that's even worse.
So sometimes it's a little more entertaining. Sometimes it's just a little more obvious on things.
I like it when you make it name stuff because it's always ridiculous.
I didn't come up with a creative name for this one. It was just it was basically what database should you pick? So what the DB, and it's about like if you have a description of a use case or data or something, which database would you pick? And you are much more experienced in database, so I think you're going to nail all of these. And just up front, like if you need help, we have multiple choice. I'm not going to give you multiple choice.
I don't know, because I feel like a lot of times when it comes to a database or learning about a use case, like I'm down to try it, but you have to be able to ask questions. You know what I mean? But I'll try
Absolutely. Like, and this is, this is contrived examples. Most of it is just like trying to lean into the experience or the benefits of specific databases, and none of them are like really obscure. Okay, so these are like the kind of common ones that I think of. Like I know all the names, right? I'm not a database person. I knew all of the databases described here, and some of them again probably have overlap. You could probably like there's probably multiple answers, but from what
sometimes
ChatGPT
it's
said,
like also like let's be real, like 5 of these are probably built on Postgres with a fancy name, but okay.
So
Let's
question
try.
1, this database is designed to handle large volumes of unstructured data like text and multimedia files. It is often used for applications that require flexible schema and rapid development.
Mongo?
Yes, MongoDB. See, it gives you a couple hints in there, which I like, because a couple of these answers I think I might have gotten right, but I don't know. Question 2, this database excels in managing complex relationships between data points and is commonly used for applications needing strong consistency and support for ACID transactions. It is a go-to choice for financial systems and applications requiring complex queries.
Cassandra?
Cassandra?
Redshift? Cassandra?
This one they put as MySQL. I would have picked MySQL only because of the I guess ACID is a lot of them, but
oh wait, yeah. Because ACID is a new like feature for Cassandra that they're trying out. It wasn't ACID for like forever, but I guess it depends on when.
I didn't even know.
Even
Cassandra
though
had
some people are like, it's not possible because like you have to pick one, but now it is now a new feature.
I probably would have picked Oracle for the answer on this one, just because of the hint of financial systems and complex queries.
Actually, a lot of financial systems use Cassandra, and it's still technically a column database, but the ACID transaction should have been the hint for it to be a SQL database, but it is now a new feature.
If you want the multiple choice options, I can give them to you as well.
Okay.
Question 3. This database, and give me a second so that people listening can
you're
struggle
right. Sorry,
and yell in their cars. I know you're excited. Like this is your game, but I want
like
people in the car
it's my happy place.
This database is optimized for fast, low latency access to key value pairs. It is often used as a cache or for real-time analytics and can handle high throughput workloads.
Redis or Dynamo?
I would say they also relicensed recently, and yes, it's Redis.
Yeah. Also, that booth was so awkward during Google Next. Everybody was like, "We like you, but you're doing evil stuff, so we're gonna walk past you." It's like, this is so awkward.
Question 4. This database is specifically designed to handle hierarchical or graph-like data structures, making it ideal for applications such as social networks, organizational charts, and recommendation engines.
The managed version of it would be Neptune, but we're talking about some sort of graph database.
Neo4j is the one that I know, and that's the answer that ChatGPT picked. I haven't seen anything wildly inaccurate yet, which is surprising. No hallucinations yet. All right, question 5. This database is known for its ability to scale horizontally and manage large volumes of data across distributed systems. It is eventually consistent and well suited for big data or real-time analytics.
Give me the multiple choice, because this could be like multiple things.
It's going to be very obvious in the multiple choice here. A, Cassandra. B, SQLite. C, Postgres. D, Microsoft SQL Server.
Cassandra?
Yeah. I did try multiple times to get it to give me one of these questions to describe Excel, because Excel is the widest used database in the world.
Why do you want to hurt me like that?
It would not spit it out for me.
I thought we were friends. Like, it's like you just wake up sometimes, and like sometimes you're like, oh, I'm gonna give Autumn a gift, like talking to Sylvia, and then the other times you're like, I'm gonna hurt her soul, and I'm gonna ask you to like give Excel. Like, it is not a database. Stop
Excel
it.
is totally a database.
It is. Oh, this is just. Why are you like this? This is like.
Question 6.
He's like, let me go for another one. Why are you like this?
I think there's 7 questions total. I have 8. Never mind. 6. This database supports complex queries and transactions with support for relational data, but is known for its high performance and scalability. It's often used in enterprise environments where both high data consistency and high throughput are needed. This is the first one I know for sure I would have got wrong. And I will give you a hint that it is specifically, they call it a managed database.
Can you read it again?
This database supports complex queries and transactions with support for relational data,
Redshift?
but is
Snowflake?
It is one you're familiar with. I'll give you there's only one managed database in the multiple choice, so I would have given it away. It is an AWS database. And it's Aurora. And I don't know if all of those things describe Aurora accurately or not.
Wait,
that's not necessarily, and there's so much overlap in AWS databases that
go back.
This database supports complex queries and transactions with support for relational data, but is known for its high performance and scalability. It's often
Aurora.
It's often used in enterprise environments where both high data consistency and high throughput are needed. The high throughput is what kind of leaned me towards Aurora.
Yeah, because it's I think what is it supposed to be 4 times faster than regular MySQL, but I don't know. I feel like that's a really crappy description for Aurora.
Yeah, I don't think that one was the best.
Yeah.
7. No, I'm not reading 7 because 7 is a repeat. It's a different question. It's the same data. It's MySQL, or it was Mongo again.
It was used for a lot of different ththings because it's
true. The question was this database is web scale.
Shots fired.
All right, the last question. This SQL database is known, it does say SQL database, is known for its robust transactional support and is frequently used in applications where data integrity and consistency are critical. It offers strong consistency and support for complex joins. This could be pretty much any. Yeah, it's Postgres is what they called it, but that's pretty much any SQL database.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like some of these descriptions are kind of crappy. Also,
I was going to add on that one. It's also the foundation for pretty much every other database.
Yeah, well, not just that, but some I missed the SQL part in the last question, which would have told me that it was not Dynamo and it was Aurora or one of those. But I don't know. I feel like some of these are very general and they could be multiple things. But yeah, yes. That's definitely a Postgres.
Yeah, there are multiple correct answers for these generic descriptions for what a database does. So yeah, that was the quiz. It was okay.
I love databases so much.
I know. I got to find some. I want to tease out some more obscure ones, and that I can give you multiple choice for them. But we'll figure that one out.
I love that you can use it for so many different things.
Or just use file system. And Excel.
Why are you like this? Why? Why are you like this? I just I love our friendship, but then every now and then I feel like you just do stuff to hurt me, and I just
because I'm a sysadmin and I don't want to learn any more SQL than I have to.
Which is funny because a lot of databases will go and make SQL-like languages. Like Cassandra has CQL. So it's the Cassandra query language that is made to look more like SQL, but you'd be surprised how many, that's a great skill because...
Oh, no, absolutely. There are a lot of use cases.
You learn it once and then all of a sudden, you just slap it on something else and keep it moving. Yep.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. And if you have any guests that you would like to come on the show, we would love to hear from some people that work at these managed database services or open source projects, because we have a big area there that we could explore. And in talking about them,
we need more database people. I love me some databases.
Talking about them in the context of managing systems is really interesting. So if you have suggestions, feel free to reach out. We are shipit@changelog.com, and we will talk to you again soon. 3, 2, 1.
Thanks for listening to Ship It with Justin Garrison and Autumn Nash. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Head to shipit.show for all the ways, or just search for Ship It wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find us. Thanks once again to our partners at Fly.io, to the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder for these dope beats, and to Sentry. Use code CHANGELOG when you sign up and save $100 off their team plan. That's all for now, but come back next week when we continue discussing everything that happens after Git Push.